What up, everybody? It's Frank Mula back at it again with another video today. You're watching Level Up, Double Down, where we don't play around unless it's video games. Now, as a reminder, we're currently on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and with that being said, this endeavor requires your utmost support. So, if you like this type of content I make and you want to see more, like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's all I ask, and I hope I can earn your support today. And if you're already subscribed, then I want to express my deepest appreciation for your gesture. So with that out the way, let's go ahead and get things started. On today's episode, I'm going to do things a little bit different and shift from the typical format with how I structure my videos, and this time I'm forgoing the usual pre-rehearsed dialogue you probably come to expect if you watched any of my previous videos. So I'm just going off the cuff without necessarily being limited to a script. Now, if you've ever wanted to see a Hackintosh being built in real time, then you came to the right place. So with all that being said, let the games begin. Alright guys, so what I have in front of me are the PC parts I intend to use for this build that I'm going to put together. This is more or less nostalgic for me. I don't suggest you guys go out, run and buy parts for older generation hardware, basically because of the fact that, for one, it's a dead upgrade path, and number two, because you're not going to be able to get any more performance compared to what you can get that's pretty much modern right now. So what I'm going to do is I want to start off with the elephant in the room. That is the RAM. And as you can see here, I have DDR3 RAM. But what's good about DDR3 though is it is still performant, yet it isn't going to compete with the most latest things, but at least it's affordable. So this is a 32-bit kit. I can't get my words all right. This is a 32 gig kit that I bought off of eBay. And luckily for me, I caught these during one of eBay's flash sales. So this altogether cost me around $100. And eBay had also offered a promo code so you can be able to take, I think, $10 off if I'm not mistaken. I'll pretty much show you what is on screen based on my purchase experience so you guys can kind of get an idea. Now, let me go ahead and put this to the side real quick, and let's go ahead and start off with the processor. Now, this is one that I actually shown in previous videos. I think I probably presented it like twice, and this is a 4770K Intel i7 processor. I bought this back in 2014 to use in the previous PC build, but then I had retired it. But the one thing about this processor is this was the talk of the town whenever I had got it, and everybody was really stoked about it. But what happened was, by the time I got mine, Devil's Canyon was about to come out, which really disappointed me, but it is what it is. I didn't spend any more than maybe $290 for this processor. So I actually came out on top because this was less than MSRP at that time. Now this is just a 4-core processor, but it still has a little bit of might in it. And if anything, I love this processor. I kept all the materials of the box all included just because I figured I would probably use it in a new build. Or another build, not new build, but you get what I'm saying. Now the next thing I wanna show you guys is the hard drive. Now this is not any kind of hard drive. And when I got into these WD Velociraptors, which this one is a 1 terabyte one, these were popular because these were like in between the speed of a regular 7200 RPM hard drive versus your average SATA SSD, which are like 6 gigabits per second, if I'm not mistaken. And so this allows for faster indexing, speedier, snappier navigation through your Windows Explorer. Now, there's gonna be a reason why I use this instead of an SSD, and you'll see during the process of this PC build, all right? The next thing I'm gonna go over is, lo and behold, the optical disk drive. Now, you might be laughing at the fact that I'm using one in 2026, but it has its purpose. And I'm old school, you know, for all the OGs out there who still like physical media, man, this one's for you, and you guys are the real ones. Now, don't let anybody embarrass you because, yeah, you need a 5.25 bay in order to install this joint into your PC case. Hell, I don't care. At least I got like a Blu-ray drive on my PC instead of having to search for one. But anyway, that's besides the point. Let me go ahead and put this to the side. And I do want to reiterate, there is a special purpose for this optical disk drive during the build process, and you'll see coming soon. All right, so I think I want to talk about this because this right here has lasted since 2010, you know, and as you can see, GDDR5 and that VRAM, boy, you thought you'd never ever see that. And shout out to EVGA, man, because this is probably my second EVGA card, but I kept up with this one over the years, and got a little dust on it. You know, that just tells you how old it is. But it's lasted all this time. #1 brand. Now, this card in particular, the GTX 480, it did get a bad rap when it first released due to the fact that people would compare this to a space heater, and for obvious reasons, man. And you know, it actually worked well in the wintertime, but in summertime, man, you pretty much feel like you're in a sauna, especially if you don't got no AC. So this card right here, people would joke around and like actually put like eggs and cook on the shroud of the actual GTX 480 just because of how hot it would get. But it was meant to be a meme, but still, this card, it would definitely rise in temperature. So, but this card has its purpose. Let me go ahead and take it out for you guys so you can kind of get the idea of what it all entails. And they use egg cartons, or yeah, egg cartons, milk cartons, or whatever to post this in, I guess to save the environment. And I kept all the accessories with this card too. And shout out to EVGA, man. I definitely miss them. I need to do a tribute video to EVGA just to show as a memento to them, and also just a sending off, you know, because I think they deserve all the credit that they deserve. Oh, I forgot, this card actually included this micro HDMI to HDMI cable, and it was weird, you know, it's a weird time. I can't remember why it included it, but I actually liked it, and it did serve its purpose. This card, that is, not the micro HDMI to HDMI. Look at it in all its glory. You know, I kept it in good condition. You know, try to make sure to take care of it. And as you can see, it comes with a blower style fan, which I really wasn't that much of a fan of, but no pun intended. That was one of the main reasons why, because you had the micro HDMI port that actually you had to use because that's what came with the card. And I guess they wanted to condense the space the card took. You know, this is a 2-slot card. And I want to say ever since the 680s, after the 680s, that's when I think graphic card manufacturers started going overboard and started making or creating 3-slot graphics cards. And 3-slot graphics cards happens to be the overall trend nowadays, you know? But yeah, this card in itself, man, it was a beauty, you know? And oh, wow, I still have the freaking plastic on it. Oh, wow, I did not realize I didn't take it off. Anyway, I hate the fact that it comes with this glossy plastic finish on it because it can easily get scratched up. So, you know, it is what it is. But yo, let me go ahead and put this back in. That way I can protect it before I start working on putting this PC together. So there's that. All right, now we're gonna get to the power supply. And as you can see, this is an ASUS 1000-watt power supply. Now, I bought this sometime towards the end of last month, and this actually is from Amazon resale, and I got it on sale for maybe like $110, I want to say, from recollection. And it really does what it's supposed to. It checks all the boxes. It has 12-volt high power, PCIe 5.0, I believe, but I'm not going to use that for obvious reasons. And I haven't got a chance to test it yet because I haven't had a rig to test it on until now. So as you can see, it comes with the power supply already in there. and the necessary cables too. And the cables actually have a nice touch to them. Yeah, I wish they were sleeved, but it is what it is. They have this like weird type of texture to them. It's not your typical nylon that you notice on those on these sleeve cables, but it still is premium nonetheless. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this up. I mean, there's not really much to discuss when it comes to power supplies, but this one right here, ASUS, you know, you can say what you want about ASUS, but I've never got burned by ASUS, and they've always honored the warranties that I've filed with them. And I'm not speaking for anybody else, but my own experience. So for any of you guys who got beef with ASUS, man, my fault. I ain't trying to big up ASUS like that in your defense, but still, I'm just only speaking for myself to say that I've never had any kind of bad experience dealing with them. Now, last but not least, we got ourselves the main event, and this what we have here is the motherboard. And I got really lucky snagging this motherboard. What happened was I was just looking up random stuff on eBay, and I saw this seller have this motherboard, right? This is a Sabertooth Z97 Mark II. Now, if for any of you guys who watched my previous video where I had discussed a Hackintosh that I built within a modified PowerMac G5 case, for one, if you haven't seen that yet, you can check it out right at the top. But second of all, I actually have the Mark I, the Z97 Mark I in that case. So this is the Mark II. I'm not really even sure what the difference is between them, but I saw that this guy who was selling it on eBay, he had a best offer type of listing. So I actually put in my offer and I lowballed it. Like, I was like, I don't need it, but hey, if the guy's willing to take it, then cool. Lo and behold, he takes it. I got this for $60. Now, I did mention in my previous video that I actually got my Mark I for around $82, $85, I can't remember, but I got that off of AliExpress. This one's from eBay. And the guy was cool. He actually, you know, kept it in very good condition, as you can see. Got the little label and stuff still stuck on it. And I'm thinking to myself, I can turn this into a Hackintosh, and I actually had the parts to do it. And I actually had to buy a few more parts to make it happen, but I didn't have to spend too much out of pocket because I already had some of the parts necessary in order to make it happen. As you can see, I got the 4770K. I already had that from a previous PC build and I just retired it. Now I'm able to use it with this one. But then also I had the Velociraptor hard drive that I showed you guys earlier. Yeah, that in itself, I've already partitioned it on macOS, so I'm able to install macOS on it, or Mac OS X is what I'm actually planning to install on, as you will see upcoming. And I have it to where I have it partitioned in 5 ways. You'll see why. Let me not even get ahead of myself because I don't want to give off any spoilers, you know? So there's that. So hopefully you guys got an idea of what I'm trying to do. You know, I got these little SATA cables because of course the hard drive as well as the optical disk drive are going to be needing this to connect to the motherboard. And just to go over some details, as you can see, this motherboard has 6 SATA ports. This board, you know, was from a way earlier era. So all the modern conveniences and quality of life improvements you're not going to see on this board, which is all good. You know, I plan to use a SATA hard drive anyway on this, not an SSD. And even if I wanted to use an SSD, I can't use a NVMe SSD or one of those other SSDs for that matter, because this board doesn't come with it. But anyway, let me go ahead and put this to the side. We're gonna go ahead and put this build together, and we're gonna test to see whether or not we can get macOS installed on here in one fell swoop, like the title suggests. So if you ain't subscribed yet, I would hope that you would do so. Do me a solid, because I'm trying to give you some content that I think would definitely give you a whole different perspective on technology and revisiting technology from generations past. All right, guys, let's go ahead and put this PC together. So I think I want to start off with the CPU, only because whenever I bought this motherboard off of eBay, the seller did not include a CPU tray to cover it. So I think it's best to go ahead and install a CPU just to keep the CPU socket from being exposed. As you can see, I actually deleted it, and I had installed liquid metal underneath covering the CPU die. With that being said, it's meant to keep it cool, because when this CPU first came out, there was a lot of complaints that the TIM that Intel was using on these CPUs was substandard, and people were reporting or making reports claiming that they were getting heat issues, you know? So I just want to make sure that, you know, whenever I use this CPU, I don't have that to worry about. All right, cool. I think the next thing I want to install is a RAM sticks. One, let's see, two, and the next one is three, and the last one, there's four. All right, cool, they all clicked in place. All right, so what I have in front of me right now is the Hyper 212 Black. And before you guys say anything, yes, I know, I had installed it on another PC of mine. And the reason why I'm using this cooler is because during Black Friday of last year, Amazon Haul, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they are a subsidiary of Amazon, and they actually are competing or attempting to compete against AliExpress. That was the whole intended purpose for it. And they offer items at discounted price, just like Temu, just like AliExpress, and they are able to ship it in a quick amount of time. It's not gonna be your 2-day shipping like you expect from Amazon Prime, but it's pretty good, you know, for the most part. And I got 2 of these because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, these cost me just $10 each. So I was like, what the heck? I might as well go ahead and take advantage of the price, because there's no telling whenever I'm gonna ever see that again. And the one that I had installed on one of my previous rigs, it actually costed me $40. So the way I look at it, hell, this makes up for however much I had to pay for that one, because of the fact that it pretty much evened out the cost. So let's go ahead and take this one out. One of the things that can get kind of cumbersome is understanding how everything goes together, especially when, you know, the version, or not the version, but this iteration of the Hyper 212 is different compared to the one I bought, if I'm not mistaken. You know, Cooler Master had made a few variations of the Hyper 212 Black, and I remember the one that I had installed in my PC last year, that actually had discontinued. So this one right here that I have in front of me is a whole totally different model. Now, let's go ahead and install this cooler while we're at it. Go ahead and put the graphics card in. So I need to have this hanging off the side, just so that way there's not going to be any issues. Now I can go ahead and put this right here. Bam, there's the graphics card right there. Let's go ahead and get the SATA cables right here. Let's attach the hard drive, which is the Velociraptor I was telling you guys about earlier. All right, so as you can see, Velociraptor right there. And let me get this off the board. Let's go ahead and connect the SATA cable right there. Then I need to find where the SATA cable ports are at, which should be over here. Okay, cool. There we go. Now let's go ahead and do the optical disk drive. I hate that I got a 90-degree angle cable. Not my intention. I just wasn't paying attention to what cables I was getting. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and do this right here. As you can see, there we go. Cool. Now we got the power supply right over here. I want to connect the following cables, the SATA cables. So what we want to do is connect the PSU portion of the cable, and we're going to get it right here. And then we want to connect both SATA devices. Bam, got that right there. Then we're going to do this other one right here. So let's go ahead and get it connected like so. Okay, looks like I had to wedge that in, but it looks like it's good to go on that front. What we want to do next is we want to connect the motherboard cable. Some people call it I think they call it an ATX cable, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go ahead and install this one real quick. Okay, cool, got that. And then let's go ahead and connect this. As you can see right here. All right, cool, so we got this right here, and then this right here. All right, now what we want to do next is we want to go ahead and connect the graphics card to the motherboard. So I got that cable, and the one thing that bothered me about this power supply is it has to utilize the 12-volt high power. You know, with all the stories you hear about NVIDIA's monstrosity of a 50 series GPU lineup and how they are prone to get melted because you got too much power going through the cables all at once, it's kind of being congested, then you kind of run into those type of issues. So, but anyway, it's neither here nor there. What we want to do is connect this one to this port right here. Then we want to connect this one to the other here. Cool. Now, last but not least, we need to connect the ATX cable. Go ahead and get this one right here, and I'm trying to shift it. There we go. And I'm going to connect it right here. And now, let's go ahead and get the other side connected. Bam. The last cable right here. Turn this to the side. It connects right here. Now, I have not tested this power supply, and it's still within a 30-day return period, so I can always turn this back if it doesn't work. Let's go ahead and test this out. Is it even on? It actually does work. As you can see at the top left, the motherboard indicator light did turn on as soon as I turn on this power supply. So yeah, I guess that was a false alarm. So I'm just glad to see that that's working. Now let's go ahead and just make sure that this motherboard turns on, and then we can get to the part where I show you guys how I install macOS, or macOS X in this instance. Gonna use this trusty screwdriver, and let's go ahead and flip it on. Oh my, and she's alive. She's freaking alive. OMG. I hear the hard drive. Don't know if you can see it on camera, but the CPU fan, it's on. Now I know that everything works, and now we can go to the part where we install macOS X. All right, guys, so I'm back, and before we get the PC running, I did want to address a mistake that I realized I had been making throughout this video. So whenever I was speaking about the graphics card, I had mentioned that it did require a micro HDMI cable in order for it to display. However, I was mistaken because I actually meant to say mini HDMI cable. And so my apologies for anybody who probably was behind their screen pulling out their hair because of the fact that I was making that mistake over and over. So there's that. Now, I did want to bring up something that I spoke on earlier, which was there was a reason why I needed the optical disk drive in order for me to install macOS X. But also, as important as the disk drive is, the GTX 480 was also important for this process. And you guys will see why, and I'll go into more detail about it once I get this computer started. So with that being said, let's go ahead and turn on the computer using the old trusty screwdriver trick. All right, and let's see what happens on screen real quick. Oh, I don't even have the keyboard connected to it or the mouse, so it may not even post anyway. But I just want to see if something comes on screen. Oh, wow. Wow. All right. So there you have it. It does work. This motherboard does work. So we're in good shape. Now I just need to connect the mouse and keyboard to this thing, and then we can go ahead and get started. All right, cool. Now that we got the mouse and keyboard connected, now we can go into the BIOS, change a few settings, and we can go ahead and try to get this macOS X installed. So I gotta go into the BIOS real quick. Instead of me boring you with the minute, long, drawn out details, I'm actually gonna go ahead and set up the BIOS offline, and then once I get back, we can go ahead and attempt to get OS X installed. All right, guys, now that we got the motherboard settings dialed in, now we can go ahead and start installing macOS X. So one of the things I had mentioned earlier was that this CD drive is of great importance and significance in order to do so, that being installing macOS X, which what I would like to show you is this CD that I burned back in 2010. If you see, it's the Empire EFI boot disk. And the one thing about this disk that made installing macOS X so impactful was the fact that basically injected drivers. It was temporary, but it injected drivers in the EFI partition temporarily in order to get the macOS X boot installation disk to start running. And so you had other type of options out there, but they were not as foolproof. So for instance, I have in front of me some distros. Now, you guys who are OGs in the macOS X Hackintosh game, you guys know about this. i8 Coast, or however you pronounce their names. And then I have two of them. Oh crap, don't want to break it. So if you notice, this is 1.0, and this is, I guess, version number 7. And the issue with these were they had a lot of hacks that were used in order to get macOS X installed. And the problem with that was you didn't know what you were installing. And if something were to break down, you didn't know how you were able to fix it. So I didn't really like this method of installing macOS X. However, it was available, and if you were desperate enough, you'd figure something out. But whenever it came to the EFI, Empire EFI boot disk, what this would allow you to do is eject this disk, then you just put in the macOS X disk, which I have right here in front of me, Snow Leopard, and you would be able to start the installation process of that. So let me go ahead and run that by you guys so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, and then you can kind of understand where I'm coming from. So let me go ahead and put this disk in a disk drive. That way, as soon as I start the computer, I'm gonna restart the computer after I get off this BIOS, then I'll be able to switch out to Snow Leopard. And I did make sure that I do have the disk drive as the first boot priority, as you can see right there. So now that we got the disk inside, I'm gonna go ahead and save and reset, right? And you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, we're just waiting to see what it does. It's reading the disk right now, and oh boy. Uh-oh. There we have it. So this is the Empire EFI that I was talking about earlier. So I have this in front of me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch out this Empire boot disk. Then I need to actually hit F5 once I insert it, once it's done spinning, and it should then recognize the macOS X Snow Leopard disk that I just put in. Just waiting for it to stop spinning. Yeah, and I hope the Snow Leopard disk is still working. That's 15 years old, 16 years old, so push F5. I'm gonna try F5 again. Oh, it says memory allocation error. Oh wow, I may have to come back and burn another copy of Snow Leopard if this is the type of error I'm gonna keep getting. So let me try it one more time. Yeah, this is 15 years old. Didn't feel like burning it again since I already had a copy burned, but let's try to see if we can get over this error that's coming up. Right, let me try F5. All right, so it looks like we're going through the same error again. Let's go ahead and restart the system. I'm gonna remove the disk, and then I'm gonna insert the EFI and restart the system. So I'm just gonna turn off the power supply. I don't have a restart button that I can refer to, so that's the next best option. So let's go ahead and try this again. And let's go ahead and insert the macOS X Snow Leopard disk. And I'm crossing my fingers this time. So let's go ahead and do the F5. And it should change to the Snow Leopard disk. Try it one more time. Yeah, memory allocation error. So I'll be right back. I'm gonna try to burn myself another copy of Snow Leopard, and then we'll go from there.
1 hour later.
All right, guys, so I went ahead and burned another copy of Snow Leopard, as you can see right here, and let's go ahead and try to see if we can get this to work. And if need be, we'll just restart. That way we can start on a clean slate. Yeah, it appears that it's still doing the same thing. So let's go ahead and restart it and then try to boot this one more time. All right, so let's go ahead and get the boot from the actual disk drive. All right, so let's go ahead and try this one more time. So I'm gonna replace the EFI boot disk with macOS X, the one I just recently burned, and let's see how this works. Okay, so let's go ahead and press F5. Hopefully we don't get that memory error again. Yep, so I don't think it was the actual disk. It might be the boot disk itself. So with that being said, let's go ahead and shut down the system.
2 weeks later.
All right, guys, so this is Future Frank Muller giving you guys a status update regarding this whole process. You're currently seeing this segue because things didn't exactly go as I had planned it. And I know what you're probably thinking. Wasn't this video supposed to be unscripted? And you know what? Yes, you're right. However, unbeknownst to me, going into this project, I had no idea that this Z97 motherboard I recently purchased on eBay had a number of incompatibility issues, preventing me from getting macOS X installed immediately after doing the usual routine steps that I've known it takes. I was even getting errors that were inconsistent with the installation process I've been used to doing all this time, causing me to receive mixed results even after I built a USB media installer to install macOS. And to add insult to injury, the Clover bootloader I'm currently familiar with was ineffective regardless of any of my efforts. So, my only chances of success were hinged on me figuring out how to set up OpenCore, which I've been avoiding since 2020 due to the steep learning curve. Damn you fucking Haswell. Now, with that being said, my apologies for taking so long to get this video out. So in between time, I had to cancel my attempt at installing macOS X, and in its place, I decided to go with installing something more modern, that being macOS Big Sur 11.1, which required that I switch out the current graphics card I was using, the GeForce GTX 480, with one that was compatible with that operating system. Luckily for me, I actually kept myself a spare Radeon RX 6800 XT on hand so I could use it to carry out this installation. But let me pump the brakes real quick because guess what? Big Sur, pause, also had its own set of problems, keeping me from being able to install it as well, even after careful planning and performing a lot of preliminary measures required while doing certain modifications to my own system to alleviate any incompatibility issues tied to the motherboard I was using in preparation to install Big Sur. It just wasn't meant to be. Let me explain. Although I was fortunate to be able to make it to the installation screen for Big Sur, for whatever reason, while in the middle of installing it, my system would automatically reboot as if it was shutting down with only 12 minutes remaining, and this inherent glitch was repeatable. And to my surprise, after doing some research online, I wasn't the only person experiencing this issue, so this wasn't an isolated incident by other people's accounts. There was not enough luck in the world to go around for me to get this thing working after numerous attempts and using different versions and revisions of macOS Big Sur. I'm talking about 11.0, 11.0.1, and even a beta version for Big Sur, which would hang every single time right before the macOS installer screen would load. So I was forced to pivot and upgrade to the next version, that being macOS Monterey 12.2.1 instead. However, this time, things appear to be different. First off, a lot of the prep work I'd done when attempting to install Big Sur, pause, was able to be carried over when attempting to install macOS Monterey. And what I come to realize was that there was at least 3 settings I can recall that I needed to change before I could even get the installation off the ground. One of those being the selection of a compatible SM BIOS to use when installing macOS Monterey based on my current hardware configuration. Second was removing the iGPU feature sets tied to my current CPU since Apple discontinued it during the release of Monterey. And third was me finding a compatible version of macOS Monterey online, that being through the Internet Archive. So I want to give a special shout out for preservation because I was easily able to find one to download and create a USB installer and finally get macOS Monterey 12.2.1 successfully installed onto the system. And even though I wasted a lot of time going through this process, it wasn't a complete loss since I learned a lot about Big Sur, pause, and the inner workings of OpenCore during my time trying to install the OS, even though most of my effort turned out to be a complete failure in the end. Now, if you haven't watched my previous video where I went into detail about my other Hackintosh that I fitted into a PowerMac G5 case, you can check it out right at the top. However, at that time, I spoke on my desire to fully learn and understand how to set up OpenCore, and based on my account, I think I did a job well done. Finally, after 6 fucking years. Now, I'm not even going to lie though. Based on what I come to discover, I actually like using OpenCore more as a bootloader compared to Clover. And this is no disrespect to Slice, one of the lead developers of Clover, whom I've had a brief conversation with before in the past. And I want to make this clear. This video is in no way meant to be taken as a tutorial, nor to be construed as such. However, for any of you guys who own a specific motherboard, the Asus Z97 Sabertooth Mark II, for your convenience, I went out of my way to put together this step-by-step installation guide with instructions to follow that walk you through the process while outlining what individual parameters to set, including full-length explanations along with links to my sources, and what side effects to look out for based on my testing, so on and so forth. And you can find this guide among many others under my account on the Insanely Mac website, and I'll be posting a link to it in the video description below. This video won't be the last for this Hackintosh I just put together, and there's going to be more in store later on down the line. So if you want to be kept up to date as it relates to my plans regarding what modifications I have in mind for this Hackintosh, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel so you can stay in the loop and not get left behind, because believe me, it'll change your life. So, as I wrap up this video, feel free to let me know in the comments what were your thoughts about the presentation I gave. If you're into this type of content where we install operating systems and get it running on hardware it was never originally intended for by the manufacturer, hit the subscribe button down below and click the bell icon to turn on all your notifications so you don't miss a thing. And also, if you made it this far into the video, I want to sincerely thank you for watching. So until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Again, this is Frank Mula signing out. Holla at me.